I want you all to close your eyes and imagine a world 100 years from now. What would that look like? Would robots be running the world? Would we be traveling around on hoverboards? Or, more likely, would we be living in a world completely different than that of today? One devoid of rainforests, of ice in the Arctic, and a general, complete lack of resources. Now open your eyes. The latter, with the way that society is progressing at the moment, is much more likely to be the reality. Greenhouse gas emissions contributed by humans have increased exponentially. This has caused the Earth's atmospheric temperature to rise, and in turn, the climate to change considerably. In this speech, I will be demonstrating the negative effects of climate change, specifically those pertaining to businesses and production, as well as the positive effects of renewable energy. I will also be proposing an achievable action plan that will benefit society as a whole. Renewable energy is our future, and it's time we start treating it as such. Since the Industrial Revolution and the beginning of the widespread use of fossil fuels, Earth's atmospheric temperature has risen. According to NASA's article, The Effects of Climate Change, Earth's temperature has risen 2.12 degrees since the late 19th century. This is driven largely by human activities and increased carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere. The Earth's temperature has warmed the most in the past 40 years, with the years 2020 and 2016 being on record for the warmest years. These increased temperatures are linked to the increased burning of fossil fuels, which our industrialist society depends upon. So corporations play a defining role in climate change as a whole. According to Tess Riley's article in The Guardian magazine, just 100 companies are responsible for 71% of carbon emissions. ExxonMobil, BP, Shell, and Chevron are recorded as the highest carbon-emitting companies since 1988. And if fossil fuels continue to be extracted at this same rate over the next 28 years, the Earth's temperature is on course to rise by 7.2 degrees by the end of the century. This would have catastrophic consequences, such as devastating species loss, as well as a global food scarcity crisis. So a question that people often ask is, how can we do our part to reduce climate change? Many people have the drive and the motivation to help climate change, but they just don't have the information easily accessible to them. I propose a policy that will force businesses to reveal the methods of production and their sources of energy. This will allow for transparency within corporations and therefore will allow people who are driven to make a change to support businesses who utilize clean energy and stay away from those who don't. This will benefit society and lead to a cleaner environment. It will also incentivize businesses to practice clean energy usages in order to not lose a customer base. This policy is wanted by the general public. As demonstrated in the New York Times letters to the editor regarding the article Renewable Energy versus Fossil Fuels, these letters discuss how renewable energy is our future and it's time we make the necessary transition to incorporate it into our society. And this transition is not only necessary for individuals, but also businesses as a whole. According to the article Climate Business, Business Climate by Michael Porter in the Harvard Business Review, businesses who continue to stay on the sidelines will be at a disadvantage comparative to those who are now devising strategies to reduce risk and find competitive advantage in this warming world. In addition, according to the article Transparency, What Stakeholders Demand by Daniel Esty, companies are receiving more and more backlash for their continued reliance on fossil fuels. Studies have shown that companies who track and report their carbon emissions closely are perceived to be better positioned to adapt and manage climate change systematically. They are perceived as environmentally reliable companies, which will benefit them because it inspires shareholders to invest. And according to a research study conducted by Carson Schwalbach, 100% of businesses surveyed believe that renewable energy is reliable and beneficial. 82% agree believe that there are advantages to using renewable energy over traditional methods, and 95% of participants feel that there are marketing strategies to using renewable energy. These statistics clearly demonstrate that renewable energy is beneficial for businesses in the long run. So, what would this look like in real life? So to recap, the policy is that businesses must disclose their energy sources to the general public. According to the ACEEE, many states already have legislation in place that requires businesses to disclose their energy sources to the public, but they don't have that same legislation in place for corporations and production. This policy will also help energy be used more efficiently, which according to the EPA, there are multiple benefits, including both economic and environmental. So what would this look like in the real world? So I'm sure most of you are aware of the little icon seen on food packaging that indicates whether or not it is non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, or organic. This idea is to incorporate that same concept on a wider scale of products. This will allow consumers to recognize how their products are produced and the environmental impact that they have upon them. So this allows consumers to clearly see the method in which these products are being produced, and so they can stay away from businesses who aren't utilizing clean energy and support those who are. Effective action to reduce climate change can be taken through individual steps, and the first being having the information about what products you're buying and how they influence the environment. So what can you do as an individual? So first, you can write to your congresspeople. If you click on this link up here, or if you click on this icon up here, it will take you to a website that allows you to find your representative and formulate a letter to them. Congress is how new legislation gets passed, so it's imperative that they hear from the people they are representing, so they can better understand what society wants and what they need. So you can also sign this petition, which will demonstrate the urgency to Congress of this issue. This will demonstrate the importance and ultimately dictate the path that Congress chooses to take. So in conclusion, climate change is a prevalent issue that society is facing today. And our industrialist society depends on these fossil fuels, these harmful fossil fuels, to continue existing as we are today. The future of our planet is at risk due to climate change, and you as an individual play a defining role in its fate. You can make a difference if you start now, because after all, we only have one planet Earth.